Right?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for the feedback. So, good morning, everybody. I'm Sabina, and today we will talk about strategies for pest control in organic citrus orchards. We will mainly deal with these four major pests of citrus fruits in the European continent. So, from the citrus mealybug to the California red scale, the Mediterranean fruit fly. But we will also briefly talk about the role of aphids, and we will also introduce you to the orange spiny whiteflies, which was recently introduced in continental southern Italy, as well as to other European countries. The mealybug Planococcus citri is native to Central Africa, and as you can see from these two pictures, there is a really distinctive sexually dimorphism, where the adult female is a convex insect, reddish in color, with these 18 filaments of wax that comes out from the body, while the male is winged, so is the one that flies from one tree to another to fertilize the female. So, as I said, the adult female is a convex reddish insect, while the male is winged, and once fertilized, the female lay the eggs, which are covered in a fluffy wax filaments called ovisacs that you can spot and detect on the plants and the fruits. From these ovisacs, the small yellowish nymphs, the crawlers, emerge, and they can actively walk and settle on the plant. The life cycle that you can see in this picture usually takes almost 1 month at 25 degrees Celsius. And given that the insect is highly polyphagous, gregarious, and it reproduces very rapidly, the mealybug is highly invasive. In fact, it established in all temperate and tropical regions, and the peak of the population can be observed in the late summer and in fall. But why is it a pest? Given that this, as I said, has a gregarious behavior, the large amount of insect feeding on the plants can lead to premature leaf drop, stunted growth, wilted chlorotic leaves, so the plant decline. Although the most of the damages are indirect, so the honeydew that is produced by the insect facilitates the growth of sooty molds, which can not only cover the leaves, so reducing the photosynthesis, but also cover the fruits, making them less marketable. Moreover, if the insect feed directly on the fruits have lumps, discoloration, and can even drop off the plant. So, monitoring against this Planococcus citri, it's really crucial. You can place luring traps, so sticky traps that have a pheromone on them, in May to detect the male flights, so the early infestation. You can even use the traps later on, so after May, but it gives you more information about the abundance of the insect inside your orchard. It is also important to observe the fruits to detect the females and the presence of sooty molds in case. You can also place sticky bands around the branches to see if there are the crawlers. It's really important to manage this plant to prune, so have a good vegetation amount in your canopies, because in this way there is ventilation, you allow air and light to enter the canopy, so reducing the infestation rates, also the growth of the sooty molds, but also allowing natural enemies to enter the canopy. Given that the crawlers are really small, it's important to clean the equipment and harvest materials. In this way, we avoid to move the crawlers from plant to plant. Again, to avoid an excessive canopy, you can reduce fertilization and irrigation. And I will stress it more and more and more during this presentation, but you can have a conservative biocontrol approach by preserving the ecological infrastructure within your orchard. So in this way, you can foster the presence of natural enemies. So by having flowering strips, banker plants, ground cover inside the orchard. Beside helping the enemies of the mealybug to thrive in your orchards, you need to reduce their friends, so ants. As you may know, ants love honeydew, so they move and protect the mealybugs. So you need to reduce their number. You can till or place insecticide-treated baits around the nest, but you can also place sticky bands around the trunk to avoid the ants to reach the canopy. And similarly, you can prune to avoid the contact of the canopies with other plants or with the ground. If necessary, you can even use powder on the trunk to reduce the number of insects that crawl, of ants that crawl on the trunk. But you can also have a classical biological control approach. So release predators and parasitoids. Very efficient are the exotic predator Cryptolemus montrouzieri and the parasitoid Leptomastix dactylopi. They are really voracious. The predator, I mean, is voracious. In fact, each larva can eat thousands of mealybugs. And if you think of the parasitoid, it can reach the 90% of parasitization rate. This is incredibly high. But you can also release Anagyrus pseudococci, which is indigenous of the continent. So what is the approach? The first step is to identify the infested trees and areas. Then you can release the parasitoid, especially in May. And what is important is that you reach a number of 5,000 insects per hectare before the end of July. In this way, you can avoid to have high infestation rates of the mealybug. In the meantime, you can release also the predator Cryptolemus with an amount of 1,000 insects per hectare. Although it is important to keep in mind that you need, it's better if you release them once you spot the first ovisacs, because the insect will, the predator will lay the eggs close to them. If you don't like the idea of releasing exotic insects inside your orchard, although I have to say that they do not overwinter in Europe, you can release indigenous enemies, such as Anagyrus or other ladybugs. But this was for the mealybug. Let's talk a little bit about the California red scale, which is native to the southeastern Asia. And similarly to the mealybug, there is the crawler stage and a distinctive sexually dimorphism between female and male. The male is winged and it flies looking for the gray adult stage of the female, which is the one that is fertilized. Once fertilized, the female changes, so she becomes reddish, she becomes more convex and takes this shape that you can see in the picture, with the distinctive central disc and the coating around. This scale, as you can see, has a quite complex, or in many cases, multi-staged life cycle that can take from 60 to 90 days to complete one generation, depending on the temperature. Given that it's highly polyphagous and it can tolerate the European climate, it's really invasive and is now worldwide distributed. Even if polyphagous, it prefers citrus plants, and being lemon and grapefruit the most susceptible ones. In this case, direct feeding is very important in terms of damages because the saliva is toxic. So the variety of symptoms include yellowing of leaves, leaf drop, defoliation, and dieback of twigs and branches. The vigor of the plant is overall reduced. Moreover, the fruits are downgraded because of the presence of the scale, and the complete covering of the trees, especially in the young ones, can lead to dieback and the death of the plant. Again, monitoring is fundamental, and you can do several things. You can directly inspect your trees. For instance, you select 12 trees for each of the corners of your plot, and you look for the scale on 2 fruits for each of the tree. But you can also look for males, placing the pheromone traps, the pheromone city traps, 2 meters above the ground, especially at the beginning of the spring when they start to fly. Thanks to degree days calculation, you can even determine the peak of the infestation and the right time for biological control if you want to use this approach. Because, of course, as I said, conservative biocontrol approach is always important. So preserve the resident predatory beetles, dipterans, and the parasitoids. But you can also have an augmentative biocontrol approach, and you can release the parasitoid Aphids melinus, which is very, very efficient in terms of parasitization rate. The most common strategy is to release 200,000 parasitoid per hectare per year, starting from the beginning of the spring. And it's crucial that half of these parasitoids are released before the mid-June, while the other half can be released in several tranches before November. Given that this dispersal of the insect is not really extended, let's say, you should not have release points more distant more than 40 meters from each other. And remember that more are the release points, the better is the dispersal and the biocontrol efficiency of aphids. Here in this picture, you can see some example of the releasing of the parasitoid. However, if the infestation rates are too high to be controlled only by biocontrol, you can treat with paraffinic oils. One treatment in summer is usually sufficient, which has to be done 2 weeks after the peak of the male flights that you will observe on your sticky traps. But you can also have another fall treatment if needed. It's always good to use narrow range oils, but remember that if you want to use also biocontrol agents, you have to wait at least 1 week or 10 days. Again, it's important to prune trees and to guarantee to have a right amount of canopy in terms of vegetation, and to control ants because they help and protect the scales. But let's talk about the medfly, the Mediterranean fruit fly, Ceratitis capitata, which is thought to have a sub-Saharan Africa origin. As you can see here, the sexual dimorphism is not so relevant. And both adults have a brown abdomen, a black thorax, and distinctive markings on their wings. The male can be recognized due to a pair of bristles really close to the eye. And as you can see from the picture, the larvae are quite remarkable, long and whitish, where the pupae are reddish brown and shorter. And then they pupate into the soil. And the adults so emerge from the soil afterwards. The life cycle is strongly dependent on the temperature, and this fruit fly loves warm climate. In fact, the optimum temperature is more than 30 degrees Celsius, where a generation can take only 2 weeks. It's due to its invasiveness, is the first economically important fruit fly species in the world. You will observe most of the damages in summer and fall. And given that it tolerates colder climates better than the other fruit flies, it spread in many countries. In some of them, it was eradicated, but now it's a problem worldwide. If you want to spot the emerging adults, you should go in the orchard early in the morning and look close to the trees. In this case, the fly doesn't damage the plant, but the problem is that by ovipositing the eggs inside the fruits, it causes a really huge reduction in terms of yield. As you can see in the picture, there is a colored area where there is the scar of the oviposition puncture, and the feeding of the larvae inside the fruit can cause the rotting of the underlying tissues, because you have also secondary infections of fungi and bacteria. And due to the acceleration of the ripening process of the external tissues, you can have also an early drop of a large amount of fruits. And beside the direct damages to the fruits, you also have an increased cost related to the quarantine measures in case of exports of the fruits, because in many countries, the fruit fly has not yet arrived. So fumigants and low temperatures are used to kill the larvae inside the fruits that has to be exported. Again, monitoring and management are entangled. So the first step is to detect early infestation by using chromotropic and chemotropic traps, targeting the adults. So especially males, you have sticky traps treated with a parapheromone. So once you spot the males, you can go on with an attract and kill approach. So there are these traps which contain a parapheromone or a food attractant. The parapheromone are usually targeting the males, while the food attractant, which are commonly mimicking or made of proteins, attract both the male and the female, because the adults, to reach the sexual maturity, need to feed on proteins. And then obviously there is something that kills the insect, so either a pyrethroid or spinosad. It's very important to apply the traps before the fruits change color, or in any case, before the ripening is finished. I don't suggest using the traps if your plot is small, or if it's not isolated, because small plots which are isolated from bigger orchards you can use the traps. Otherwise, you are just attracting the insect inside your small orchard. Here's some example of commercial traps, which are made of different components, as you can see in the slide, but the sense is the same: attract and kill. You need to place 50 to 70 traps per hectare, because the extension of the active space of the traps is limited. And you can start from late August, but again, before the fruit change color is important. Here in this slide, I just wanted to show you how an homogeneous placement of the trap is important. If you don't want to buy the traps, you can make your own. So you can either use transparent bottles filled with an attractant, usually a food attractant, and borax. A good tip is that if you don't know how to have protein hydrolysate, you can use the fertilizer sulfur-aminium. But you can also use panels that are soaked just with the insecticide, so deltamethrine, and you just attach a food attractant on that. Obviously, so there is also the glue on the panel. Unfortunately, biocontrol agents are not very effective against ceratitis, and even if there were many parasitoids that have been tested, usually they do not establish and they don't reach the larvae, which are really deep inside the fruits, especially in big fruits. However, what you can do is to promote the natural enemies resident inside your orchard, because there are many predators that attacks the larvae that are pupating into the soil, but also the pupae. So again, conservative biocontrol. It's really important to the sanification of your orchard. So eliminate all the infestation site and destroy the infected fruits. You can also try to use augmentaria, which are these mesh tents, where you can place all the infested fruits. The mesh allows the parasitoids to enter and escape the tents, but not the emerging adults from the fruits. There are many advantages because you have more parasitoids inside your orchard, you have less adults emerging from the fruits, and you have compost that you can produce from the mesh tents. In your small orchard, where you cannot use attract and kill approaches, you can protect your fruits by treating with clays with kaolin, or again, before the fruits change color. It's important to have a good covering of the fruit, obviously. And because in this way, you deter the oviposition behavior of the female. In extreme cases, even if you should avoid, you can treat with spinosad, while pyrethrum and pyrethroid are not suggested because they are less efficient and they reduce the biodiversity in your plot. I will briefly introduce you to the orange spiny whitefly Aleurocanthus spiniferus, which is native to tropical Asia, but was recently introduced in the European continent. As you can see, even if it's a whitefly, it has a distinctive black habitus. The adults are the one that you can see indicated by the black arrows, while the nymphs is the black oval shape indicated by the red arrow. It is very distinctive because it has these heavy spines coming out from the body and whitish walks around. In the case of pupae, the fringe is even larger than to the other nymphs. Here, the life cycle, and it can take from 3 to 7 generations per year, and it prefers mild temperatures and high humidity. And in fact, it established in the European continent, in the continental southern Italy, in Croatia, Montenegro, and Greece. It is very polyphagous, it has many hosts, and it's very invasive since it's reproduced very rapidly. It can tolerate, in any case, our climate, and it can reach high densities. Unfortunately, we don't know very much about this pest because there are not many data regarding the population dynamics in our continent. And in these pictures that I took at our institute, because we had quite remarkable infestation on some citrus plants, you can see that there are damages due to the direct feeding of this insect, especially on shoots, on young shoots. And due to the production on a honeydew, we had growth of sooty molds on the leaves, so reduction of the photosynthesis, and also on the fruits, so which are downgraded and in many cases unmarketable. Given that there are no specific strategies against this pest, it's very crucial to monitor. So you can place yellow sticky traps to detect the adults, but you can also perform visual inspection to spot the nymphs on the abaxial side of the leaves. You can also use sticky bands around the trunks and around actually the branches to detect the mobile crawlers that move on the plant. Again, it's really important to conserve inside your orchard the natural enemies, which are predatory beetles, but especially the parasitoids. And it seems that the parasitoid Encarsia smithi is the most efficient one, which can also be released in case of high infestation rates. Similarly to other species, it's important to reduce the plant density and excessive canopies to increase the resistance of the plant. And it's important to control the ants. Briefly, just a few words regarding aphids. We are lucky because in Europe we don't have such a huge problem with vectoring, aphids vectoring diseases. We just have problems with Aphid spiricola, which can cause direct damages, and Aphid gossypi, which can cause direct damages, of course, but it is also a vector of the citrus tristeza virus, although it's less efficient than other exotic species. The damages are usually observed only on young trees or recently grafted ones. And what you can do is that you use sticky traps or other kind of panel traps, the white ones, for instance, and you monitor the flashes looking for this kind of symptoms that you see in the pictures. Usually, you need to intervene only if a large amount of trees and flashes are infested by the aphids. And usually, conservative biocontrol is sufficient to control the aphid population. So preserve the biodiversity, retain bunker plants, use flowering strips. In this way, you can have parasitoids belonging to the genus Lysiphlebus, which can reach a 90% of parasitization rate, so really good. But you can also have many species of predators, from syrphids to lacewing to ladybugs. In case of extreme difficult infestation, or if your trees are already weakened by other diseases, you can use organic insecticides, so pyretrum, mineral oils, azadirachtin. But again, if you can avoid, it's better. So I hope that from my presentation, you got as a home message that it's crucial to increase and preserve the biodiversity inside the citrus orchard. And depending if you are establishing a new organic citrus orchard, or if you are under conversion to our organic planting, you can use different approaches to increase the biodiversity within and around the plot. Because in this way, you can increase the stability of your agroecosystem and enhance biocontrol strategies. I found these very useful slides from Feeble. Again, biodiverse plots are less susceptible to pests and diseases. And if you want to know about that, you should attend the next courses. So what are the further perspectives? It's important to better understand how to rely on ecological infrastructures, so enhancing the functional biodiversity, how to use bunker plants, what are the best ones, how you can use ground cover. But again, attend the next courses if you want to know more. We should also understand how to use semiochemicals, so odors, and semiophysicals, so sounds and vibrations, to enhance the biocontrol efficiency. And if you want to know more about how to use vibration for pest control, you can either look for our practice abstract on the Biofluidnet website or the video that we uploaded. Lastly, some reading suggestion and that I uploaded on a folder on our e-learning platform, if I'm not wrong. And thank you for your time. Thank you for your attention. Thanks to Noel for her support, and a special thank to the agronomist Francesco Ancona, because he truly helped me in preparing this course.
Thank you, Sabina. Thank you very much for your presentation. I noted some questions from Amina Khader from the course SARE. She didn't understand the relation between ants and Planococcus citri.
Okay, well, the problem with ants is that they feed on the honeydew that these insects produce. So they feed on the honeydew. So what they do is they actually farm the mealybug. They move the insects, they protect them from the predators, and they take care of them. It's like the relationship between a farmer and a cow, more or less. So the problem is that even a predator or a parasitoid that is trying to feed on the mealybug and predate on the mealybug is protected by the ant.
Okay, I hope that it's clear. Okay, thank you, Amina, for your question. Also, we have another question from Fakher Ayed. He's asking about the arm threshold of Planococcus citri.
The
arm threshold. If Fakher wants to ask the question directly, he can.
The threshold of in terms of treating.
Fakher, are you here?
Hello.
Okay, go ahead.
Happy to be with
Hi.
you. I just have a question about the economic threshold concerning the Planococcus citri.
Usually, I think it's around 10%, but also like around 5–10%.
Sorry, I don't listen.
If I'm not wrong, it's around 5–10%, depending on your orchard.
Okay, thank you.
So,
Fakher, do you want to ask your second question, or I will do it for you? Okay, the second question of Fakhr was, did you try the DAP in the trap to control the medfly?
The DMP?
DAP. Fakhr, do you have more
It's
information?
the ammoniac phosphate.
Not really, but there are many different types of attractants, because I guess it's attractant.
Yeah, it's attractant. It's alimentary attractant. It's used in it's synthetic, and it's used in the trade to attract medfly. And
Yeah,
it's allowed.
Well,
It's allowed in
usually,
organic.
yeah. Well, usually food attractants are just mimicking the proteins. So there are different typologies. While it's more, while the range of food attractants, it's quite wide. It's more the parapheromones that is narrower, because it depends. It's more specific. So I never use them because usually use commercial traps because we are a bit lazy maybe, but there are different food attractants that are available. Many people, they also like have their homemade ones.
Can I just ask you another question
Sure.
on this for the control for spinosad? You mentioned that you use spinosad in the trap attract and kill. Yes.
Yes.
But I think we have in the market another biopesticide with the active matter. It's spinosad, and it's used in foliar application.
Yeah, I guess so. Because you can treat the plants with spinosad for the control of the medfly. It's just that it impacts the whole ecosystem. So while the traps is limited, because the attract and kill traps works in terms of, even if there is the spinosad, it's just the medfly that enters get killed. Well, if you spray in your orchard, you affect all the ecological infrastructure. But you can also use local sprays, so trying to detect the infestation sites and try to treat only there. Because also, for instance, using clays with kaolin, you will not use that on all the orchard, but usually you spot the points or you use it in the corners, more in the periphery.
Great. Thank you, Sabina, and thank you, Fakhr, for your question. I also invite Ayantun Tades. I hope that I pronounce it in the good way. I invite her or him to ask the question directly to Dr. Abuzani. Ayatun, are you here?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, nice. She is. Please.
My question was, does this parasitors and predators does not have effect on farm environment? That's my question. Also, the cost. Like I'm from Ethiopia, from Africa, so this method it's not expensive. It's quite wise.
Thank you for your question. Yeah, it's in the case of classical biocontrol, usually these species are released once, let's say once in the past was a little bit deliberate and less thoughtful, let's say. Now there are many studies behind, so you study their role inside the ecosystem, if they affect other indigenous species, and usually the ones that are allowed are ones that now that have been used for several years. So it's really difficult, for instance, now that you will have new exotic species that you will use. You usually use ones that have been used since a long time, although there are many exceptions. Yes, there are studies to assess the effect of your releases inside your orchard, but usually if they are allowed, it's safe. And in any case, it's used in an agro system, not really in the wild. So again, there is a reduced. And then there is the fact that usually if your orchard is it's healthy, so the ecological infrastructure inside your orchard are strong and your orchard is resistant, even if you release another species like these biocontrol agents, there is an equilibrium that is reached at a certain point between the resident natural enemies and the one that you are inoculating. And on the other hand, it's true that the availability and the costs of these biocontrol agents depends on the country. So, for instance, in Italy, there are some insect farms that gives for free the biocontrol agents, because it's the national agency that gives the money to the farm. And another possibility is that you grow your own biocontrol agents. So if there are not farms close to you, or you cannot buy from the big commercial entities or enterprises, what you can do is that you buy an inoculum and you rear them on yourself to increase their numbers and to have your releasing insect. We produce a practice abstract about that if you want.
Okay, great.
So, yeah, it was related to the Planococcus, but for instance, we rear insects that we want to release, the predators and the parasitoids, because what you do is that you use your pest to feed your parasitoids.
Okay.
Thank you.
Perfect.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Ayantu. We have 3 other questions. Rizwan Sal from Mediterranean Organic Agriculture course. Please, can you ask your question? Rizwan,
Yes.
are you here?
Yeah, I am here.
Okay, please.
Thank you for the chance. My question is that from the pests you have listed, from the Mediterranean whitefly and the others, can one of these pests can be a predator or a parasitoid for other pests, which can be a biocontrol for the other pests that attack fruits?
Sorry, I didn't get the question.
You have listed almost about 4 pests, right?
Yeah, the major pests.
The major pests in your PowerPoint. So can this pest be a parasitoids or predator for other pests? Other pests which can attack the fruits.
Yeah, if you mean that if the parasitoids and predators that I mentioned here can be effective against other pests.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, for instance, Aphids melinus is very effective against many other species, as well as Encarsia. All the parasitoids belonging to the genus Encarsia, also Aphids and metaficus are really effective against a lot of other pests. But then it's really important that when you have because now these are the major pests in the Mediterranean, or in any case in the European continent. But if you have other species that for us maybe are just occasional pests, what you just need to do is just to check what are the best suggested species. Because for instance, for the citrus leaf miners, there is all a range of parasitoid that is incredibly effective. Usually you don't need to treat for the citrus leaf miner because these parasitoids can reach 90% of parasitization rate. So usually it's the in terms of citrus organic production, conservative biocontrol gives you a really good protection usually. It's not always true because it also depends on the orchards around you, but usually the ecological infrastructure allows a really good threshold in terms of damages. So if you don't know exactly what species you can use and release, what you can do is just to have good cultural practices, reduce the number of ants, prune your trees, keep it clean, and reduce the density inside your plot, and using other species, so flowering strips, mulching, all these kind of strategies to increase the biodiversity inside your plot and around your plot.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, great. We have two other questions. Daniel Megalaes, could you please ask your question?
Hi. So thank you for the presentation. And I was wondering if you had a specific timing or a specific product that you would recommend for the what we could do before the beginning of spring. For example, you said that citrus for citri, Planococcus citri, that you would recommend the pheromones about May. But before May, would you recommend a treatment for it?
No, not really a treatment.
No.
No, I mean, before May, what you do is that you avoid an excessive fertilization and irrigation to have a good amount of vegetation. You more monitor your plants before that, like in terms of visual, because you can see the Planococcus overwinters as a nymphs, and it can usually found for instance, close to the branches or almost hid inside some trunk cavities or these kind of things. So I will never suggest as a preventive measure treatments in terms of insecticide or anything, but more monitoring and using traps. You can just place traps, so sticky traps, sticky bands around the branches, but not treatments, not really. I will treat only if you have huge infestations, or as preventive measure, even if you, because for instance, if you use biocontrol before even knowing the amount of infestation that you have, you're just wasting money, because you will buy the insect, put effort in releasing them. So monitoring is the very, very first step, and pruning and reducing ants. These are the treatments that you have.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. I'm sorry, I've seen that in one of the questions there is like the economic threshold. If you download the presentation, inside the notes, I try to put all the thresholds and also the timing and the percentage of regarding, let's say, I put all the numbers because I didn't want the slide to be boring. But I give some suggestion inside the presentation as notes. So if you want to download it and read it, maybe it can be helpful.
Perfect, Sabina. Thank you very much. We have one more question from Hasib Ben Khidr. Please, Hasib.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you, Sabina, for your clear and nice presentation. I would like to ask you about the trap. You said that 50 to 75 traps per hectare can manage the meadowfly. Can you give us the distribution of this trap in the field, or just you put them randomly in the field?
Oh, pardon. I actually show a picture where there were the distribution. So the traps have, if I'm not wrong, around 6 meters of active space. Like you put the trap and there is really an active space around with a diameter of 68 meters. So what you do is that you place as more as you homogeneously can your traps, because in this way you are sure that you have a uniform distribution of the attractant.
You can say so that this method is mass trapping.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, it's mass trap. Usually, it's called more. The definition are kind of, I don't know, shady. But I think that mass trapping is usually referred to the fact that you attract and kill, or mass trapping in terms of the number of insects that you get inside your traps, and sometimes it's used more for the traps that are targeting both males and females, sometimes more only with the ones with the male. It's a more kind of definition, but yeah, it's attract and kill or mass trapping.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you for all the participants. Sabina, we have almost 3 other questions and it is 11. Okay, I don't know if we will proceed with the answer.
For me, it's fine.
How about the other participants? Is this fine for
They can leave. But they should do the quiz before.
Yes, at the end of the session, yes. I will share another link for the quiz, so please answer to this quiz. It will take you just 1 minute, no more. Okay, just to monitor more or less the understanding of the audience. So please start to answer. Sabina, maybe you can answer the questions now. We will continue. What do you think?
If you want, I can continue.
Okay.
And in any case, if somebody has question, I can share my email.
Yes, please.
And you can also directly write to me.
Maybe, yes, we will do like this. I will share, I think I will put my email because I need to collect the question for the 3 sessions, okay?
So you put your email, all the question goes to you?
My email, that means please contact me, send me your questions, and I remember you that at the end of this month, we will start the e-learning courses. That means this online course will be in the platform of the CM Bari. We will send you your credential, okay, in order to access. And where you can find all the useful material, the presentation, the video records of today, and for the 2 other sessions. And we will have also the forum when you can interact between you, and also Dr. Avozani will answer your questions. Okay, let's do like this. I will share now my email. I just to monitor. Wait, we obtained some answers. I thank you. If someone would want to add something, please raise a hand. Nothing. Anna, do you want to add something?
Yes, I just want to remind that once the course is uploaded on the website of the project, BioFruitNet, you will be able to view it whenever you want, and we invite you to disseminate and share it with all your contacts and all those who may be interested. And also, we recommend that check all our material available on the website, practice abstracts, videos, and some podcasts, and share it, of course. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Anna. Also, I remind you that tomorrow we will have another session from 11 to 12 of the distance learning course on organic citrus fruit production, and will be dedicated to the emerging phytosanitary risks to organic citriculture in the EU Mediterranean area, and will be presented by Dr. Khalid Jelwah. I thank all the participants. Thank you for the very interesting discussion and also for the clear presentation. Thank you very much, Dr. Abuzani. And,
Thank you.
I will see you tomorrow, hopefully. Have a nice day. Ciao, bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.